Welcome everybody. So we have more people who will be coming on, but we are going to go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining our ongoing pop-up series of our executive series webinars. What we're looking to do with our executive series webinars is really getting to different individuals throughout the industry, but also areas that support the early learning, the childcare, Montessori, private school. We even have charter school folks that have been involved with our programs. And in turn, we have a lot of interest in different type of topics. Today's topic happens to be onboarding to keep them aboard. And we are lucky enough today to have Carla Rogg, founder and CEO of Care Solutions, or some of you know her from is Pro Solutions Training. And I'm sure she'll give us a little bit of a clarification on that. But I do see that Carla is there. How are you doing, Carla?
Hey, thanks so much, Tony. I'm doing great. It's nice to be here and to be with everybody to talk about a subject that's near and dear to me as far as onboarding goes.
Wonderful. Well, up front, we are going to go through a few different items and hopefully people find this value. The objective of these sessions is to bring you some valuable content, things that you can immediately turn around and hopefully look to either apply or have you be thoughtful about some of the things that you're doing today and how you may want to enhance what you're doing. So if you do have ideas as audience members, I would highly encourage you to send any messages to us, and we will look to seek to try to help scratch that itch or find those subject topics and expertise in them to make sure we can get right to them. So with that said, let's move on a little further. Up front, we're gonna, let's get to our agenda. Our agenda is we're just doing a welcome now, and we got a couple housekeeping items, and we'll go through more of a formal introduction about Carla, and then onboarding to keep them aboard. And Carla will be driving that, but it's more of a two-way discussion. We will have hopefully at the end 5 to 10 minutes for any type of questions that people have of maybe taking that content and having it applied to them, to their centers, to their schools or academies or the like. And then we'll go through a wrap up. So first, let's go ahead, and one of the first housekeeping topics is for all of our Inspire Care 360 members who are out there today. Many of you know that you have been onboarded for your IC 360 hub. It's all here for those of you. We have not gone on to the schedule yet because we have just been rolling this out in a phased approach. It is time to get you up and running on the hub. So this is fantastic. So all of your people solutions, your brand solutions, your buy solutions, from all the personalized training to your professional development. What we'll talk about today is CDA courses, but access to your HR expert, your platform, your HR wizard, virtual healthcare, the marketing incentive sites with the super low program discounts to get bids for your kids if you want. Exit interviews, brand analysis, our IC 360 rep program, the crisis support, survey tools, brand promotion, as well as a litany of different purchasing solutions, anywhere from car rentals to cell phones to HVAC and property management. And then our really super exclusive programs for supplies, both office supplies and food supplies, upwards of 30% discounts that have been nationally negotiated, all in one interface. And that is our new hub for our members. So that becomes basically their homepage. So if you haven't, please reach out to Jen or your member advocate, which also could be Heather, and ask more about how to get started right away. And let's talk a little bit about Carla. So I know, I'm sure this is the first thing you really wanted to do, Carla. But Carla, I was just down in Atlanta probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Carla was kind enough to bring me out to lunch at a place where I lived in Atlanta a while back. And she's just an amazing, dynamic individual and very humble, though. I was amazed at how humble you are, and you shouldn't really be, because you've built up an amazing organization, with the president of Care Solutions, which one of those divisions really focuses on professional development. But you do a lot more there around for information management and application development. And one of the things is when I looked up and just not only talked to you, but the way that I did a little bit of research, as I do on you through different channels, I found out your real focus is on really building a strong culture. And I think that's what you and I value a great deal is how do you motivate? How do you lead? How do you enhance? And you have a sense of a servant leadership role, which I really believe in. Fair to say?
Well, as you said, I always get a little shy when people are talking about me, so I'll just say thank you very much. But as far as the culture piece, yes, I'll agree with you. I think it's very important, and it really kind of goes in to really what we're going to be even talking about today, because the culture that you build and that you have in your company, your center, really speaks to who you are as a person and really kind of dictates a lot of how your success is going to be if you are going to be successful.
Absolutely. And so we're going to talk more about that is for those members know amazing culture is everything at Inspire Care 360. And that's why we found great partnership with our premier partner with Carla and Pro Solutions Training. You know, her division focused on professional development and training, but it is really moving curriculum to an online platform, distance learning with the ability to launch, track, manage tremendous amount of compliance courses, really cutting edge. When I was in there in her office, I met a whole bunch of talented individuals who really have a very distinct focus. You know, one of them is mainly focused for every state, ensuring that compliance stays up to date, which I'll tell you is one of the toughest moving targets to be
Very
in
true.
the industry. So I have a lot of respect for her as well as this group. So with that said, yeah, if we can move forward, Carla, does that work for you?
That works for me, sir.
All right. So I do know that you have here about why onboarding is important. Why don't you start telling us, and why don't you kick us off, because these are some of your deck slides, but we'll just go back and forth a bit.
Well, you know, onboarding is so important, and it really has, especially in our industry. I mean, I think most of us recognize that in the childcare industry, that turnover is just something that everybody really has to deal with almost on a daily basis. I mean, turnover right now in the early care and education field is about 26% overall, but among our assistant teachers, it's up to 36%, with about 17% with our lead teachers. So it's really something that as owners and directors, we really have to concentrate a lot of our time on. And I really feel it kind of goes back again to what you said just a few minutes ago about culture. But I truly believe the culture that we build in our company and in our center is extremely important. And it's our role as leaders to help that our employees feel valued and valuable. I mean, these are the things that can make or break it with an employer's decision to stay, to stay long term with a team. And so we have really taken a very, I guess, aggressive approach to onboarding. And I work a lot with leaders and other supervisors and people who are working around some of these staffing issues. And I really, if you kind of go to that next slide that we have there, Tony, I talk about power challenges, and maybe I should, back up for just a second, because when I'm working with people around power challenges, it's really behaviors that create that best culture in your organization and can help us best personally be the best leaders that we can. And so when I look and talk about onboarding, we're really talking about bringing your best self to the table. And the power challenges are just those terms that I use to help motivate others. So what we're going to do today is look at 3 power challenges that you can use hopefully back in your work to really help you with the onboarding process. And that first one really has to start really with creating that right leader attitude. And I think that's really the very first one. And it's, and Tony, just to kind of get a touch base with you before we kind of go on, I mean, you've been doing this for a while, and don't you feel that really that right leader attitude, we're going to get into some of the details of it. How do you approach that in your own center?
So that's a great question. For those of you who do not know, I also own and operate 4 centers in Western New York, in addition to being the founder and CEO of Inspire Care 360. So what I look at when you say creating the right attitude, it's very difficult, in my opinion, to sort of force anybody to do anything. But what you can do is you can really look to values. And when I look at when we are recruiting, when we are hiring, when we are performance managing, when we are, rewarding, when we're promoting, all those elements come right down to having shared values with our leaders. So, I guess I'm a big believer in shared values, Carla.
Okay. Well, I think that's really great. And I think that just plays right in. And I really appreciate you saying all of that, because really bringing the right attitude to the table and pulling that together is so important. I mean, first off, you're never going to be able to achieve perfection with employee retention. It's going to happen. But you're the leader and you're in charge. So how do you step up to make it as good as it can be? And if you really think about it, turnover situations can often make you feel like can make you oftentimes feel like you're in a very hopeless situation. But if you really concentrate only on those situations and look at the blaming and the complaining, and like you have up here, the withdrawing and the avoiding, you have to stop those behaviors because they're not going to get you anywhere. I mean, if you think there's something that you can do, then you're going to do it. And that's all about changing a little bit about your self-talk. I mean, when we're talking about how to create the right leader attitude, when you walk into that center, when you walk in, you are setting the stage for everyone's behaviors there. They look to you for that. Would you not agree, Tony?
Yeah, and Carla, it does, whether you're in a center, whether you're running a training organization, whether you're running any type of business, even like, I like to relate it to like even your family at home. When you have a certain tempo that's going on, even when you walk in at home to your family that's there. And if you come in and you have, as a leader or like a parent, you come in and you have a very distinct attitude, your entire family takes it on. They actually respond to it. So just like in a center, I agree with you fully. I think that as a director, an administrator, or as an owner, if you come in and you're like, we've lost a few enrollments because we had turnover at the end of the summer because kids are, moved on and aged out. And now you're like, there's a lot of anxiety about that. The more anxiety that I've tended to pass on in my early days to my staff has not been beneficial.
Right. No, I agree with you on that one. And so really that first kind of challenge that I give to everybody is first, you have to get the right frame of mind. You've got to bring your best self to the table, because no matter what your strategies are, if you don't have the right attitude about it, then they're not going to work. So that's really kind of power challenge one, is bringing that right attitude to the table, which brings us really to the meat, I think, of really what we're going to talk about, which is kind of power challenge two, which is get going and keep going. And this really gets into the strategies that you can use when you are doing your onboarding. And I like to think of these, I kind of divide them up into two strategies. And the first one is a very tactical strategy, and the second one is more of an empathetic strategy. It's tactical, like I said, when and how long we onboard. But that second strategy is really onboarding for the emotional experience, and that is just as important. But let's talk first about the tactical one, which is when and how long we onboard. I think in the old days, we thought that if we just, said hello to the person, showed them where their classroom was, where the bathroom was, maybe showed them where to store their lunch, we were done. They were onboarded. Everything was done. Our job was complete. But that's not true anymore. In fact, onboarding starts before that person ever gets into your center, long before they get into your center. And it keeps on going. It doesn't just stop the first day. And it's important to realize that it doesn't just stop in the first week or even the first month. It is a process that takes a long time.
So Carla, may I ask you a question?
Sure, jump in.
When you say that onboarding starts long before they even walk in their first day, I'm a huge believer of that. And I have some thoughts on that too. What are your thoughts? How do you engage someone even before their first day?
Well, and we have a great, I have so many thoughts going. I want to spit them all out at the same time. But We're not talking about recruitment because recruitment is yet even another conversation here. But so let's start when that person has said yes and they have accepted your offer of employment. Right then is when your onboarding starts. And there's some very simple things that you can do. Those include making sure that they get an email welcoming them aboard, letting them know what to expect on their first day. And even I have a little bit of a list, and I'm happy to share that with with you, Tony, a little bit later, but it
Sure.
also includes making sure that the parents in your center know that there is somebody coming on board. And these are all those kind of must-dos, those check the boxes. There's the legal, the policies, issues that you have. But you have to remember that checking these boxes really is just getting them into your organization. And I can't say that enough. It's
Yeah.
checking the box. It's just getting them into your organization.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've found is when you're onboarding, no matter if it's a teacher assistant all the way to hiring on a new regional director or what have you, it's like the first day of school, right?
Right.
You walk into a new school, you don't know anybody, right? It's like you're like, I'm not sure what classroom to go to. I'm not sure what my locker number is. Back when we were all in school, it's like I have this anxiety about what's going on. The more you can do to get them on the same page, the same values, and understand your culture before day number one is absolutely critical. So I'm fully on, I'm on board with what you're saying. So I really think that it's all about letting them know about expectations. Because when we look at you, and a couple slides before, I think you said about attitude oftentimes comes when there's not a meeting of expectations.
Right. No, I agree. And that just kind of leads right into the second strategy that I want to spend a little bit more time on and actually get into some of the different actions that you can take as a center owner to do with onboarding. And it is the one that I said was the empathetic. It's kind of the onboarding for that emotional experience. It's what positive emotional experiences do we want that new employee to have? And I wish I would have sent it to you, and I can send it. I think you post your PowerPoints maybe up a little bit later, but I can send it to you. It's a diagram that really divides up onboarding into two experiences. One is kind of onboarding. The second one is ongoing. But the first part of onboarding is just letting them kind of feel like they fit in. It's where they know somebody and where they can kind of manage their job. It's just where they've gotten to that place where they walk in and they no longer feel like that lost person. But what we're really working towards in onboarding is making sure they go from a feeling or a feeling of I begin my job to one that says I belong, because that's when you've truly assimilated that employee and that they're going to stay with you for the long term, and you have to get them there.
That's awesome. That's great. Matter of fact, when you think about it, a lot of us have all gone through it, in college is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basis of food, shelter, money, what have you, the reason people get a job within a center oftentimes is because they need those bases. But if you go up a couple steps in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging is one of the key elements of the human psyche. It really is about why they become part of your center and want to be, and what keeps them there is a sense of belonging. So, I'm not sure what your slide is, but I can easily imagine the onboarding to the ongoing is really moving from that check the box like you have here, really to that belonging element.
Right. Well, and some of the activities and different things that you can get, because I'm sure that, the people that are on the webinar here are also looking for some very concrete ideas and some things that maybe that they can take away with them. And one of the things that we have found very successful is making sure that that new employee is assigned a buddy. And this is different than a mentor. A buddy is that person that they can go to when they are wanting to ask those questions, those dumb questions when they're not sure of things. And they know that they have somebody there that they can go and ask what they need to be able to ask. And other ways, I think, at looking at kind of helping them to kind of onboard around that, in addition to kind of a buddy, is making sure that you as the employer are checking in with them on a regular basis. Those check-ins in that first month are extremely important. And I think it's oftentimes we forget to do those because it's very easy to correct things early on rather than trying to correct things later on. So making sure you have some of those scheduled check-ins is extremely important. Other things is just making sure that you also have a developmental plan, a professional development plan with them. And I mean, this is where we get to put a little bit of a plug in for some of our work here, but it's really important that that employee knows what the expectations of what the expectations of them are. They need to know where they can go in that organization, in that center. If you are an assistant teacher, they need to know what they can do then to become a lead teacher. Or if they have an AA or a BA, they need to know what they can do to maybe potentially go back to school or to get their CDA.
Yes.
In there, I saw you there. I wanted to mention on the CDA, and that was one of the things that you had talked about there at the beginning. The CDA, shameless plug here for our training, is just a great first step for a lot of teachers who may or may not have a degree in early care and education, and really kind of help set the stage for them in being able to be a successful teacher. And we have worked for the last 8 years in putting together this really very successful concrete coursework to help teachers be prepared to go and take their CDA exam. So we're very excited about that and being able to partner with you all on that.
And that's wonderful. And let me, so one of the ways that we started using, the reason that it really excited me about our partnership on this, Carla, was because typically in the past, we would have teachers, teacher assistants who wanted to be teachers, who didn't have the college degrees or the education. And even in some states where you need like level 7, they still didn't really have the opportunity because it financially was really challenging for them to go back to school, get their associates, go get a bachelor's, what have you. And even with a lot, the price of the CDA programs have been very difficult and challenging to some degree for that to be paid for up front and then have assistance or grants or the like, but it is very doable, What we've worked together on for us here is how do we make it where the centers from the ownership and the administration can attract staff by using that as a recruitment tool in such a low job marketplace. And I think offering an opportunity to have a CDA with your organization as part of a recruiting tool is fantastic. It's also a great opportunity that we've used for our centers in really creating a career ladder or a career path, saying that if you want to get to the next level in your organization, in our organization, what we ask you to do is to complete a CDA. We will actually fund it for them. We fund that CDA. We do put a commitment in there that if they do take that CDA, they have to stay with us for a certain period of time. And there's tenets to that. But what it does is it gives them real motivation themselves to up their career. It gives them an opportunity to even get increased wages. It gives them more of a breath because now they add more value to our centers, and it's created a longer term staff member. So sorry to go on the little diversion.
I think this is a good point to point out. I mean, I'm really impressed that you do that, Tony, with your teachers and your centers, because I think that, and it really does tie into the whole onboarding discussion. And as far as hiring and retention is that unfortunately in this field, the benefits that are there are very minimal. And we're talking about, and it's not necessarily, it's not a high paying career. And so teachers are entering this for a lot of different reasons. One, because they love working with children and they have that ability and this wonderful rapport with children and being able to do that one. But when you don't have those benefits to be able to go on, it's very hard. And you see a lot of turnover because there aren't those benefits. And I think when you can offer something like education to a teacher, it's a wonderful opportunity for them to grow as individuals. And so I think that's really kind of cool that they're able to do that one. And is a very cost-effective approach.
No, I appreciate that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I put like a cherry on the top of it. We ask our teachers, and this is why, like Inspire Care 360, we're on, the personalized onboarding experience. And we're at par with you exactly with what you're believing in. what we believe though is too, I think like you do, and that is that we're asking our teachers to teach all day long. And then they're like the cobbler's kids. Oftentimes they must go through, which we all know, and you guys do an amazing job at Pro Solutions of, compliance training, but they also want development themselves. And so a CDA program like this, I think, is just a fantastic opportunity for them. So
Yeah. Well, and I agree. And I think it's a great program that you're offering there for your employees as well. And it is one of the, and education is key for our teachers, and it's key for our field as well. I want to go back to those two strategies just for a second. As I mentioned earlier, you can keep the deck right where it is here, but we said there was a tactical strategy, and then there was that one that was much more empathetic. And I really think that you may have to make sure that you're including both of those. I just want to kind of go back and just say that again. So, and to be constantly vigilant on that. But there are those daily activities and different things that you can do. So I did want to just spend, if we could, Tony, a little bit of time. And if I can make a couple of these checklists available if you would like to.
sure.
If any of your people would like to see this, we have, there's the checklist. There's 1,000 checklists out there. I'm sure you have with them with your center of checking those boxes. And we have like an 8-page checklist of things that you need to make sure that you're doing from a tactical standpoint. But let's talk a little bit about just some of that things that you can do there in your organization or in your center to make sure that you're extending that onboarding all the way through so that you're truly getting them to that point of belonging. And in some of these, you're going to say, well, duh, of course, we do those things. But ask yourself, are you doing them on a consistent basis? Do you have them built into your program so that you have a really good concrete onboarding plan? And the first one, I think there's the next one, I think it says social integration and connection. Recognition of achievements. We're going backwards.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to have to put them all.
We'll just let them all come in. It's okay.
There we go. Because I think our animation probably didn't translate too well.
That's okay. We're flexible here. So, but social integration and connection is really extremely important. You want to encourage staff to develop those collegial friendly relationships. You don't want to discourage socializing. Now, unless of course it's getting in the way of work. I mean, you have to make sure that it's not getting in the way. And the other thing is you need to plan and allow for a little bit of fun in the workplace. For example, at all of our staff meetings, our staff now know that we're going to have really silly icebreakers. I mean, it could be anything from how long can you juggle a ball to, I think the last one we did was a true icebreaker. We froze t-shirts and tried to figure out who could, thaw their shirt the fastest. And so allowing a little bit of fun, is really important. And staff like to be able to have a little bit of fun in that one. And, you can have your teachers dress up, and kids love to see their to see their kids dressing up. And that really kind of supports those objectives of onboarding of I belong there, I have friends, I'm connected, and that they fit in. So social integration and connection is extremely important, and it's good for staff to see.
It makes a lot of sense.
We covered professional development, but I don't know if we really talked about the individual development plans. I want to go a little bit more in depth with that one. Simple plans are okay, and professional development needs to go beyond compliance. And I know we talked about the CDA, but professional development also really is important in talking about their professional growth and can help them, especially in that first year when they're getting started, to work through any of the kinks. We had a teacher, it was their first year that they were working in a center, and they were so dedicated, but there were just some rough edges, and some professional development really helped with them. For example, they were a little unsure on how to do transitions from the classroom to outside, or even how to set up necessarily their classroom in the best way. And there are courses and classes in professional development, both online as well as different trainings that even the director can do to help them. So I really want to make sure that professional development is in every employee's file, and they know what's expected of them.
Do you mind if I jump in on that, Carla, just quickly?
Of course.
So a huge believer in that. One of the things that we do, and a lot of our members do now too, which, because I learned from them, I learned from everybody, but is we ask we do it as myself as the owner, if I have the conversations with my leaders, but my leaders also have it with my staff, is to really when everybody comes on, we always have this sense that they know what they're doing. They came in and they took the job, they know what they're doing. I think we all know that there's a lot of gaps out there, and to spend a little bit of time inventorying with a new staff member exactly where their comfort is, where their strength is, taking that assessment time to assess them on how strong they're in different areas allows you really to sort of create almost a prescriptive professional development approach. And that really allows you to say, okay, whether it's your local child care council, whether it's doing something online with Pro Solutions or with Inspire Care 360, or with bringing speakers in or going to conferences, it's really important not to assume that everybody is on the same plane. That's what I've learned, at least.
Well, and I agree with you, Tony. The other important piece is we create customized training plans with all of our clients that we work with so that they're a little bit different and tailored. But where we find centers that are the most successful is where they don't just develop the plan and then put it in the employee's file and then forget about it until employee review time, which is what we're going to talk about also here in a minute. And so it's really important that that training plan is a living, breathing document, and that both the employer and the employee take responsibility for it. And so I think it's really, important. And again, professional development is going to support those onboarding objectives that we talked about, kind of as you call them, the hierarchy, the Maslow's hierarchy, is that you're growing and developing, that you're feeling supported, and that you're valued. And somebody's taking that time. So professional development, I believe, is extremely important. This next one, I think, is one that oftentimes gets ignored. It's the connections with the parents. I'm not saying that teachers don't know who the parents are and they're not sending notes, but sometimes I think they're not really making a real connection oftentimes with the parent. You have to encourage your teachers to really connect with them. Now, this does not mean socializing, going out for a drink on a Friday afternoon or any of that. That's a big no-no, at least in most that I work with. But you have, as a teacher, a common bond, and it's that child of theirs, and that is so important. I have a favorite story to tell, which is both of my children were lucky to have this fabulous teacher, Mrs. McKenzie, when they were in pre-K. And she had this knack of, when you walked in, to make you feel like your child was the most important person in the world, and that she had never had a child quite as good as yours. And I know that's not true, because I know the faults of my children. They're the best ones out there. But she had this way of just making sure that you felt, and that's what you really want, is you want that teacher to have that connection with that parent. And so that you feel like your child is the most important. And I say that story because my connection, well, it was with the with the teacher, it gave me a connection with the school that I might not have had. And I would have not, so I felt even that much more, I guess, I would never leave. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. And not only that, but it's like what we were just talking about, how as an owner to your leaders, as a leader to your teachers, of understanding where they came from, what's important to them. With your teacher, talking to the parents about that child and where they're coming from, what is important to that family, what is important to that child, why, in a very personalized basis, really sets that connection and really can set that stage as to just coming in the classroom and managing the class for the day.
I agree. And just to kind of reiterate, as we're kind of going through this, and that what you're doing when your teachers are making connections with the parents, that teacher is feeling like they're making a difference, that they're part of something that they care about, they're connected, and they feel like they belong. And again, that's where we want them to feel, is that they belong. And I said we were going to talk a little bit about performance reviews, and I really want to talk about ongoing feedback because performance reviews should not be a yearly performance review. As we said a little bit earlier in this presentation, that it is extremely important that you have scheduled feedback with your teachers. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is the hardest one for me as an employer. We get so caught up in our days and what we're doing, and it's one of the easiest things to forget about, or to hopefully kind of just push under the table because you've got so much going on. But when you can provide feedback on an ongoing basis, it is probably one of the most important things you can do to really work on that retention rate of yours. I think in the onboarding, when we talk about the tactical and checking the boxes, at a minimum, you should be meeting with that employee at least monthly for the first 3 months. And then I would say what we try to do is monthly the first 3 months, and then at the 6th month, and then at the 12th month. Now, these are feedbacks, not just kind of walking in the classroom and saying hello and how are you doing? Are you having any issues? What can we do? This is an actual sit down with that teacher and talking to them about what's going on in their classroom. And if there are issues that you need to handle, then this is where you can handle them. And again, taking care of an issue early on is so much easier than trying to take care of something at a yearly performance review or where it gets to the point where that teacher isn't even around for that yearly.
So Carla, you make a great point. Let me ask you this, because I think all of us out there, especially those who own and operate or administrate or even lead or even at the director level, and people in the audience member today, we all have the very best intentions. Okay, every single day we have the best intentions. We'd love to go in and see how curriculum is being implemented. We'd love to make sure that we are giving thorough feedback. But we also have the challenge that every day brings us a new day with new challenges. We had 2 staff members who called out this morning. I can't do the onboarding that I planned on doing today. I'm even having a tough time because I have to, as a director, go into that classroom. I got to manage that classroom. Or even as an owner, I have to go into a classroom. Or something happened and licensing is walking in. What do you feel from your years of experience when things are hectic, really hectic? And because feedback sometimes can be formal and other times it can be relatively informal. But I hear what you're saying about not being too informal, but making sure it hit on topics. Do you have any thoughts as to how to handle those situations? Because we are all full of days that are just wildly busy.
Well, we're going to continue to have those days, and those aren't going to go away. And let's kind of talk about the formal versus the informal. As far as formal, scheduling. If you go on and put those dates on the calendar, I know it sounds very simplistic, but if you have your employee come in 15 minutes early and you schedule it, then you're much less likely to not do it than just to say, oh, it's time for a monthly review. So it's really kind of scheduling those events on the calendar. And I do want to kind of just jump in and also say that our younger workforce, we hear about the millennials and the Gen Zs and all the different people, but you know what? This younger workforce needs and expects frequent feedback and guidance. And so I think it's really important to make note of that. So formal, I'm sure that's not the answer, and everybody's going, well, yeah. There is no magic answer to being able to put extra time in your day. I wish there was. If there was, then I think I'd be on a much bigger talk circuit right now than this one if I knew how to put extra time in everybody's day.
Well, but I do have a little idea that we've done, and because I think it follows in your theory of how important it is. A lot of times as owner operators, we're really focused on, we do not want to go into overtime. We are really tight on ratios. We need to make sure everybody is in the right seat at the right time doing the right job. I really think that, and I truly believe that we as owner operators get so much more if we invest 15 minutes to a half hour of one person a week in overtime. Just one staff member a week, even though you're paying them time and a half, and spending another half hour with them, with your staff, or 15 minutes even at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day when things have slowed down a little bit. Like you said, that generation who really thirsts for guidance, for support, for feedback of, are they doing it right? Have they been doing it right? More than just a reward or a gold star. To me, I think that pays off in spades. So oftentimes you'll hear me say, because part of our proposition for our company is to avoid getting into overtime, to do everything you can within the day. But I'm a believer where you make a small investment like that, it really pays off in spades because of the objectives you can hit.
Right. Tony, let me jump in too and also give folks one other idea that we had a center director use in her center. She wasn't in a position to where she could pay that extra little bit of overtime. And so what she did is she actually went in and had lunch with her teacher. It was still formal, but she, during that little break that she got, I mean, you have to watch your ratios and during nap time as well. I think as long as you're making it intentional to have that formal feedback, it doesn't necessarily have to be in an office with the door closed, unless, and let me underscore that, if you are needing to deliver some negative feedback where there's going to be some questions and some issues and where it may not, you don't want to leave her hanging if you're in nap time and suddenly children start to wake up. You need to make sure that, that you're careful in what you're delivering. But if you're having kind of that, just a nice, normal, typical, but check in with them, you can oftentimes maybe find some time during the day. But again, you have to schedule it.
Yeah, and one of the things too that I think is a great idea that goes into this of when you can do it during the day, and a lot of us know this out here, but we sometimes forget in the day, especially when we're coaching our leaders, is you can actually provide feedback through modeling. And what I mean by that is you're actually able to go into the classroom and you see like the place may look disheveled, or you might notice that like in the infant room, people aren't putting on booties and they're not being attentive. The infant teacher isn't being attentive to a lot of things. It's a great opportunity, I think, to give feedback through doing some modeling with them and asking some things while you're actually doing the job. So it's almost like an on-the-job coaching at the same time while it actually is feedback to them. So
that's excellent idea. That is a very excellent idea. I'm going to take us into that next one because I'm looking at our time here and I do want to make sure we have a little bit of time also to talk about when it's not working out. But that next one, which is recognition of achievement. And I think that people like to be recognized. They like to be told that they're doing a good job. And these can be verbal and informal. They can be as formal as something as an employee or teacher of the month. I mean, and they make the objectives this really hits is that teachers feel valued. They know they can do this. They see that they're growing and they're developing. I caution, though, because these do have to be very meaningful to the employee, and you don't want them to just be rote. We used to do Employee of the Month here at our firm, and we found that those first few months, everybody was really very excited about it and looked forward to it. But after a while, we were just looking for employees who hadn't gotten it, and it completely lost its meaning. So if you are going to do a program as formal as something like Employee of the Month, you do have to make them be very meaningful. But they don't have to be that. If you get a note about from a parent that they just really, that their child had a really good day and they really appreciated all the work that the teacher Allison was doing, then let the other staff members know. Send her an email saying thank you. Taking those little opportunities to let the employee know that they are valued and are doing a good job is so important. I mean, those types of, it can be, like I said, formal, but even the informals play a lot into it. Do you all do anything like that at your center, Tony?
actually we do. We have 4 kind of awards that a teacher can win every month. And some of it has to do with, who is recognized as probably like, the teacher of the month, but also those who are like the busy bee, the one who's always active, the one who's engaging all the parents, the one who's engaging all the staff. We have 2 other ones too. So we've given some nice names to them, and I call them like, paper plate award type of things, but there are some rewards to it. But I fully agree with you. If you have the same person who's going to be, the busy bee, or someone who is going to do the same high level, I don't mind giving it to that person time and again. But I also will say that if no one has stepped up to the plate, we're not going to give out that award this month either.
No, that's a very good point. a very good point. And I'm sure there's a lot more that are out there as well. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and these are just a few of the strategies. There's many more. And I think the important piece is that, you should have a plan for onboarding. It should not just be something as an afterthought. And you should really sit down and decide what is that onboarding plan of yours. It should include, as we said at the very beginning, very tactical, where it's checking all of the boxes off that you do, the things that you need to do, the legal and the financial, the fingerprints, the compliance training. But then you also, as I said, have to do the emotional onboarding as well to get that employee fully onboarded and assimilated into your center, which includes professional development, includes the recognitions, it includes making sure that they belong there and feel that they belong. But I think it's always important, we started this out, by saying that there's a 26% turnover and even higher among our assistant teachers. And so it's going to happen. And, that's the reality. And so you have to be prepared. But, there are things that you need to keep aware of when it isn't working out. And, typically it's three things. The employee is going to leave, they leave. If the employee isn't working out and you have to fire them. But I'm going to start off with the third one. When that employee isn't working out, but has the potential to potentially, that's not very good there, has the potential to, for you to be able to salvage that job. And there are things that you can do, and you need to make sure that you have looked at the professional development plan that you have with them. And see, is that employee following it? And maybe it's just kind of sitting down with them and saying, hey, I really feel like you have the potential here to make it, but I see we're not following the plan, the professional development plan that we have set for you. Or I see that, you're consistently late on Monday mornings. I mean, we all have that employee that's late on Monday mornings, and finding out maybe why, that is happening. Maybe it's because she has her own carpool that she has to make, and there's some things and adjustments that you can make. But if you feel that you have an employee who has that potential, before it gets to the point where you're going to have to let her go or she's going to quit, it's really to make sure you do your best to salvage it. Tony, do you have a plan as far as when you see that potential in an employee and then yet it's just not quite there?
So we could talk a lot about different stories with that. And, I think sometimes it's bad on us bad on the staff member if they supposedly have that competency and they don't have the competency to fulfill that role. And we've really worked with them and they cannot step up and they're not willing to step up or try. And then I start to look at, the theory of, hire slowly, terminate quickly. But we've had a situation where it's bad on us, where we have a staff member where we put them into a situation where they really are not equipped to handle those tasks because of the skill sets that they came with. What we needed to do is we needed to inventory more of what was their real skill, ability, and not just throw them into a room or throw them into assistant director or a director role without inventorying what their real soft areas are and then creating that professional development plan. So that is a big thing in Inspire Care 360 thing, is really creating that plan to get them on that life cycle journey to crunch it down and get that information to them and that learning as quick as possible. So yeah, huge believer.
No, I think it's important. And unfortunately though, sometimes no matter what you do or how much work you put into it, the employee is just definitely going to leave. And that does happen. And I think it's really important that this is kind of where you have to have the right attitude and keep that professionalism about you too. Because offboarding can be as important as onboarding. It's think about it, how you end that relationship is still extremely important. Those former employees are a mouthpiece for your organization. And so you want to make sure that you let that employee leave in the best possible manner. We like for every one of our employees that quit, we try to do an exit interview. And that is so important. Exit interviews are, you can ask the top 3 questions. You should have the 3 questions. And one of those, to find out what you might be able to do internally to maybe prevent it from happening again. And you have to be willing to listen to what those answers answers are. I think, Tony, you had shared with me that that is a big piece that you actually offer, not just is the exit interviews. And I didn't know if you did those with teachers as well as if a family leaves your centers.
Oh God, absolutely. So part of, our members, what they receive, as well as my centers, every time that we have a family who may leave, but as well as a teacher who leaves, we do an exit interview. And we do it as a separate third party because a lot of times the person who's leaving, there's a lot of emotion, right? So Carla, if I was working for you and you're separating our employment, I have a lot of emotion about that. And so it's going to be really tough for me to be honest with you. So what Inspire Care 360 does, and thanks for, pointing out one of the many things we do, but for all of our members, we do these third party exit interviews for our families as why they left, as well as staff members, because the only way we can really improve is get to root cause. So I'm a huge believer, and I'm also a huge believer, like you say, to try to do your very best not to go with any kind of ill will, because with today's social media, first thing people is they're on social media, Facebook, they're out on, Google or Yelp, and they want to try to take you down, and your reputation is everything. So there needs to be a big focus on protecting your reputation. Part of that is in how you treat your staff, both coming, but as well as when they're leaving.
Right. And I want to reiterate too, is that when you do that exit interview, whether you're doing it or you have, someone like Tony doing it there for you, Tony's firm, you have to make sure that you're listening to the answers, because so many times we want to make sure that it isn't something that we did. And sometimes there's some small changes and fixes that we can make down the road. And the last one I just kind of want to throw, because I know we're about ready for questions and answers, but I think it's important that when an employee is not working out, and you know it, you need to terminate them, and you need to terminate them as quickly as you can. Don't wait. Keeping an employee who is belligerent, not showing up, not doing the work that they're supposed to do, really contaminating your environment. It hurts morale, and it's an extremely toxic environment.
Yeah.
I'm going to reiterate that you have to be kind when you're letting them go. You still are that part of that offboarding, that they're still going to be that mouthpiece for you. But, and their emotional experience still matters as well. But anytime I have kept an employee longer just to fill a spot, I have paid for it in the long run.
So, and that is something that I'm a huge believer in. And what I've learned over time, and this is in our industry, which is really super difficult. We have ratios, we have compliance, we're always tends to be understaffed in a down economy. So then you have a toxic employee who you're like, but how do I possibly let her go? Because I'll be out of ratio, or my director will be in the classroom all week, if not. What I've learned over my years of experience has been sometimes it's better to bite the bullet.
Yep.
And move. Sometimes you cannot let that person go right away, but you have to create a journey that you are getting someone else in there as soon as possible. And I have done it before where I've talked to my director and said, we have to let her go. It is a toxic environment. It is taking everybody else down. Parents are going to be leaving soon. We must make it happen, and we have to figure out a way to do it. So sometimes it's difficult to bite the bullet, but I highly advise, when I've looked at both ways of keeping them longer to fill them or letting them go and having your staff stretched, candidly, the letting them go, having your staff stretched for a little bit has worked out better. Can't do it all the time, but I highly recommend it.
No, you're absolutely right. Well, Tony, I hope you and the people on the webinar have gotten some really good things today. I think it's important to remember that onboarding starts, before day one, and after that, you just have to keep going, and you extending onboarding, some of those ongoing activities. And I'm happy to make available to you any of the checklists or things if any of the folks want that we use. I think it's important, and sharing of information is always nice. I think we can all learn from one another.
No, I think it's great. And so I just want to do a really quick review. 26% for teachers, lead teachers, all the way up to 30, or for assistant teachers up to possibly 36%. And I've seen areas that has even been up to 40%. And each head of a person who leaves, on average, is about an $8,000 cost to your bottom line for turnover. So if you can reduce your turnover, think about that $8,000 falling to your bottom line. Getting ahead of the game you're talking about, which I think is fantastic, making sure even before day number one, and then looking at the tactical as well as the engagement in long term, the onboarding as to the ongoing, as well as how are they checking the boxes as to getting them to the point where they belong. We talked a little about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs and what have you, helping assign a buddy you were talking about, also checking in with them periodically, as well as that feedback with them periodically, creating a professional development plan, obviously a CDA, great program that we both are believers in, the social interactions, that professional development, the connections with parents, the ongoing feedback and recognition. If it's not working, what is finding out if there is potential for them in other areas or potential for them to be developed. And if you must exit, really trying to get to the root cause, possibly using a third party or someone to get to those exit interviews, but either way, and also transitioning in a very, as much of a positive matter as possible and not waiting. So trying to summarize the whole call of what you were talking about, Carla. Hopefully we got to a lot of that. So I do want to open it up and see, so to look here, I'll come back to some of this here, but if you want to, there is a participant button here, and I know we only have a couple minutes left, but in the participant button, you will see that you can click on participant and it allows you to raise your hand to ask a question. If you do have a question, please let us know. We only have a couple minutes left, but we do have a whole bunch of people on the call. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is we have a little bit of overrun here with your slide, and I'm going to make sure that people can see this. So I'm doing some PowerPoint editing. Right now,
Thank you.
right in the middle of, oh no, I better not move the picture there, but
That's okay.
but at least people can see what we have going on here. Okay. And I am not noticing any questions as of yet. So one of the things I want to let you do is some of the elements of what Carla spoke of was she spoke of that she had a few additional items like some checklists and the like. If you are interested in receiving those checklists, all you have to do is navigate to Inspire Care 360 to our contact form. There's fill out a little information, put in the dialog box that you would like to have Carla's checklist, and we'll make sure to get those over to you. It's a quick way to make sure that you get that information that she had. If there's any questions that you have or want to get in contact with them too, please fill that out. Or if you want to learn more about Inspire Care 360, you also, please don't hesitate to take a look if you're not already a member. But I know we have a lot of members. I look at our list, and there's a ton of our members online today. So any other questions, Carla? I know we're really at the top of the hour, right at 2 o'clock.
Well, I just want to say once again, thank you so much for having us here. I've really been inspired by your organization and the work that you guys are doing. So I just appreciate being included and asked to come on board.
Well, great word to use there, inspired. So, I really appreciate everybody. We appreciate your attention, and we'll have another pop-up executive series webinar soon. So start looking for that in the near future. But Carla, it was an honor and a privilege to have you. Thank you, everybody. Everybody have a great weekend, or a great weekend. We're almost there now. So I'll say a great weekend for you all. Take care, and we'll talk to you real soon. Bye now.